Today on MVP, we'll be meeting with leading serial entrepreneur and marketing executive Everett Taylor. We'll be discussing his journey from once being homeless to now running companies that gross over 8 figures annually, and the sacrifices it takes to see recurring startup success. Hello, Everett. Welcome to the MVP podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out to just speak with me for a little minute.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate what you're doing with this podcast and just what you're doing in the space. And yeah, it's a crazy, hectic week for me, but I'm actually right now sitting out in Ojai, out in California, kind of in the quiet, in nature and all that good stuff. Just good for self-care and mental health, I think. So.
Well, I mean, you're a busy guy. You've done a lot over the past few years. And we'll talk about that today, but I'm happy to hear that you're taking care of yourself, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I feel like most of my listeners are going to know who you are already. They're going to know, about the companies you started.
Nah.
But I mean, you're kind of a big deal. But, for those who aren't as familiar with you, I was kind of want to give them a recap of everything you worked on over the past decade, really less than a decade. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I try to do a little due diligence and get my facts together. But so you started your first venture, a competitor to Eventbrite, when you like the summer after your first year in college, and then you sold that within 2 years. Then you partnered with Sean Ellis on Growth Hackers. And for those who aren't familiar with Growth, it's like an online community and a software company, and it's focused on helping companies create sustainable growth. And so that is now, that's been a good few years, but that's now worth around $60 million. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I was like, where you get these numbers? I'm like, what investor decks have you been roaming around?
I've been studying. I've been
in these streets, man.
I've been studying, right? So I really try to even though my background isn't in journalism or anything like that, I really try to prepare and do research on people, because I can not only speak to your experiences, but also talk about who you are as a person. And a part of it is hearing what you like to talk about, what people have been talking about in other interviews. So I pay attention now. So after that,
I see you.
I see that after that, you created Millicent's, which is a marketing firm, and your passive current clients include companies like Microsoft, NASA, and Miller Lite. Then you joined Skirt as CMO, which was later acquired by Fair. More recently, you started Pop Social, which is a social media software company. It did $2 million in revenue in the first year, and now it's doing eight figures in revenue. And then just last year, you partnered with Zoe Saldana to launch a media platform, Besse, and you also launched a drug and alcohol addiction prevention app called Haver. And a few days ago, you launched a new venture in the art space, ArtX, and we'll talk about that later. But, I think overwhelmingly people will regard you as a super successful serial entrepreneur. And I'm curious to know, in your own words, what do you think it is about you as an entrepreneur, and further as just a person, that kind of breeds recurring success?
Man, wow. Also, after listening to you say all that, it's just kind of crazy to hear your life condensed down. That it's been crazy, because this has been my life the past 10 years, and so much has happened. And there was even things in there that you don't know about or you didn't include. That as you're going through it, I'm thinking about it oh man, it's been a lot that's happened. And for me, it's what has led to that success. I think there's a few things. I've always been a very relentless person. I'm not the type of person who takes no for an answer. And I think a lot of people get so easily discouraged in their pursuits as an entrepreneur. If the word no is going to turn you away, then you probably shouldn't be in entrepreneurship, because you're going to hear a lot of no's. If failure and making mistakes is going to get you discouraged to the point where you can't brush them off, you probably don't want to be an entrepreneur. So I think that relentlessness that I have and that resilience that I have through everything that I've had to deal with professionally and personally throughout my life has led to that success because, I've always been laser focused and had my eye on the prize. And then there's a few other things like emotional intelligence, I think has served me very, very well in a space where, it's a lot about data and numbers and it lacks that human feel. And I think the ability to be able to be experienced enough on the tech side and data side and kind of bridge the gap between the two of data as well as emotional intelligence has led me to be able to come up with great ideas for products and understand how to launch those products, how to market those products, and what those customer needs are. And, I think a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is luck. There's crazy good timing. There's different things that broke my way that could have easily not have. And so, if you're an entrepreneur out there that, has had really bad luck, in your career, don't let that discourage you because, you never know how that's going to fall later in life.
That's fair. So, I mean, speaking of like, your several ventures and everything like that, how do you decide on what's the right idea? Like, I know this is something I struggle with all the time. Like, I am probably sitting on 10 different business ideas right now. But, like, how do you
Right.
know which idea you're going to pursue? Is it something where it's like, are you looking at it from an investor's perspective, like, the market size? Or are you going with your gut? Are you going with, your feelings and like your passion right now? Like, this is what I'm passionate about in this moment and this is what I like to explore. Or, is it more quantitative versus qualitative?
Right. It's so funny. Not until this last company have I really done much of what I was passionate about. It was more of me recognizing certain spaces and certain things that were lacking in those spaces and seeing a golden opportunity. And when I think about all of the companies that I've created, they all kind of have a similar genesis, right? Where it's consciously or subconsciously, I have, what's the best way to put it? I have gained experience and cultural capital within the arena in which that product is going to be in, right? So one of the mistakes that I see from a lot of techies is they see an industry and they're not part of that industry. They're not involved with it. They're not part of the culture at all. And they just feel like they can tech it and solve these issues, right? Without really knowing people, without really experiencing it themselves. And so, like I said, whether consciously, with me like intentionally doing it or subconsciously, everything that I've done, I've kind of immersed myself within that community and target audience in which the product is later going to be released into, and having those conversations. And when you immerse yourself within that, you then tend to see areas of opportunity or places that are lacking, right? And so when I see that, that's when the ideation begins to come. And the one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs do, and I'm sure you've done it as well, is a lot of the ideas that we have are things that we want to see in the world, right? And it's not necessarily something with product market fit or something that we should actually work on, right? And so once you have that idea, it's about finding product market fit and actually having conversations with your target audience and making sure that this is a product that they actually want to have and need. And a lot of people don't do that. And so just being meticulous about that process, from immersing myself within that target audience, finding areas of opportunity, backing that up with data, and then, quantitative and qualitative data, and finding product market fit, has been this process that I've been able to do. And then also, anything I launch, even ArtX right now, which I just launched, which the actual product that is going to be the end game for ArtX. I'm thinking about Marvel right now for some reason. The actual end game for it is not even released yet. It's not even finished being created, but I still have revenue generating things like our Amplify product and our merchandise, and then some events that we have planned for the future. So everything I've done, I've also been able to generate revenue right away, except for Growth Hackers. But that was a very, very, very different company. So.
And did you, this kind of departure from that, but did you struggle with that? I guess Growth Hackers was a little earlier in your career, but did you struggle being patient with yourself through that, not immediately making revenue, or were your eyes always on the prize and the end goal?
Well, Growth Hackers was different because the genesis of Growth Hackers is the only company I've founded that I founded with other people, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit different, and the money was coming out of Sean Ellis's pockets, and then it was venture backed, and so it was a little bit different. And initially, Growth Hackers was a growth hack for Qualaroo, which was the company I was head of marketing for, to build a community kind of similar to how HubSpot had inbound.org before it shut down. Creating a community in the marketing realm, in the growth realm, in the startup space and tech space, which was our target audience. And it worked. Like 1 out of 3 people that would come to Qualaroo would either be Growth Hackers users or had heard of Qualaroo through Growth Hackers, right? And then we were able to successfully sell that company. So that's one thing that you had left out, is that, when I came to the West Coast working for Sean Ellis, I headed up marketing for that startup, and because of the success of Growth Hackers, it helped grow that company, and eventually that company got acquired. So Growth Hackers is a very interesting company in itself within the portfolio of companies in ET Enterprises.
Do you ever think you'll go that route again, like that partnership route again? Are you open to it at least?
Partnership in terms of in terms of having a co-founder?
Yeah.
Maybe. I'll never say never. It has to be the right person. In complete honesty, it didn't work out that well the first time. And and that's just me being honest, and you having very different visions. You come into it with a singular vision, and as the product evolves, as time goes on, you may begin to have different visions for that product.
And so I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, but was that kind of, I don't want to say a seamless breakup process, but you moving on to other ventures and things like that, what was that process like, and how do you know when is the right time to start working on a new venture?
It was for Growth Hackers, and this was another thing that wasn't said, was that, I was 25 years old, and I got offered to be CMO of a very successful e-commerce company called Sticker Reel, right?
I like Sticker Reel. They have good marketing. I remember very early on I applied for a job at Sticker Mule. This is no, I've never told anybody this before. I applied for a job at Sticker Mule and they rejected me, but they sent me a $50 credit, and I was like, well, that's thoughtful. at
Yeah,
a
sticker meal.
at a minimum, you could send me a credit.
Yeah, sticker meal is a great company, and it was just very interesting building that up at a young age and getting the experience that I did get there. And yeah, it was a situation where I, um, I wasn't fully satisfied with what was going on with growth hackers. Um, and not that I couldn't have stayed there and, you know, try to push through, but Sticker Mule provided me an opportunity where I was getting paid more than I've ever been paid in my life as a CMO, right?
Hmm.
For a profitable and successful company, um, and be able to manage a bigger team, and just get a lot of experience as a marketing executive. Because at that point, even though I had growth hack, I started that first company out of necessity and sold it, and then had growth hackers, which I tell people all the time, like it was just like right place at the right time, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then Millicent's, which was built out of me getting so much interest in people wanting help with their marketing. I didn't really think Millicent's would end up being what it is today, right? It was just as a way, it's like, let me create this LLC to do some consulting, right? So at that time, with all that being said, I still wasn't like, hey, fully committed to the entrepreneurial thing. And being from the hood and being, you know, from a place where I didn't really have a lot of security, to be paid hundreds of thousands of dollars plus, have a secure, profitable company to be behind, that was really attractive. And also being able to get that experience as a marketing executive, right? And so I took that, you know, I made that leap. And so for me, it wasn't like this very complicated process. Even though Growth Hackers was my baby, I understood that, you know, the dynamic there, I wasn't going to be able to take that product and company to where I really wanted to take it. And so I had to let it go.
And did you struggle with that?
Um, it's tough. It's very tough.
I
Then
mean,
I got that
you
first
called
check
it
from
your
Sticker
baby.
Mule.
You call it your
I'm
baby.
joking.
You
I'm
know.
joking. No, I'm joking. But it was Sticker Mule compensates very well. But it uh it 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 was tough, and it's still even tough. Tough to this day that that I walked away and things like that. We still built something very very special and something that I'm proud of, and it's still going and still thriving and still making moves. And so, you know, if I stayed there, I wouldn't be where I am today.
That's
I
awesome.
needed to, I needed to take that leap.
So, I mean, I guess with that being said, if there is there anything you can say about partnerships or finding the right partner? Like in some of your other interviews I've listened to, you spoke a lot about the power of having a good team behind you to get these products from point A to point B. And I mean, in your experiences, and I don't want to speak specifically on like your time with Sean or anything like that, but like, you know, could you provide a few tips or insights on building or joining the right team? Like how do you vet prospective co-founders or partners, or even joining a team as the right opportunity in that moment? I mean, sometimes you might just have to take it what's in front of you, but if you have options and you know that you're going to be able to make a conscious choice about what's next for you, what's the right way to go about that?
Amanda, you asked me hella questions just now. Um,
Well, you
so,
can you can
so
start wherever you want.
I'm just gonna answer how I kind of remember it. Okay.
Okay.
So, in terms of finding a partner, in terms of a co-founder, right? So, finding a co-founder and finding the right people to help you build a business who are not founders are similar in some ways, but very different, right?
Okay.
As a co-founder, you are choosing, good or bad, like you guys are gonna die on this hill together, or you guys are going to win together, right? Because you're giving them you guys are sharing a substantial amount of what that company is worth together, right? Um, and that relationship between you and that person is going to fundamentally, um, take the company or break the company. And so that relationship is so key. And me personally, I can't give the greatest advice because I've only done it once. But what I will say is, you definitely want somebody who has strengths that are your weaknesses. You got to have somebody who has humility, is willing to listen, is willing to compromise, is willing to test their ideas and not just throw shit out there, which a lot of people won't do. A lot of people are like, I'm right about this. The right co-founders are the types of people who want to prove their ideas through data, right? Whether that's qualitative and quantitative, I think that's really, really important. In terms of, and then obviously you two got to get along. You don't have to love each other. You don't even have to be friends, but you got to be able to work well together. And I think that's really important. You see, like, I don't know if you're a sports fan, but, Kyrie and LeBron had their issues. Shaq and Kobe had their issues, but they were able to work well together, right? At the end of the day, to get to that end goal. In terms of finding the right people for your company to help you build it, you got to have people that really buy into the vision. A lot of times with startups, you're not going to be able to pay them what they deserve. You're going to need people who are going to go above and beyond at times, and it's really important to have people who are looking for an opportunity to really prove themselves or do something that's impactful, and not somebody that's just looking for a job. Some of the worst mistakes I've made as an entrepreneur is hiring people just looking for a job. And then when it comes to, I can't remember, did you ask about like joining a team and joining a startup or a company?
Yeah, joining a startup, or like, I mean, you mentioned like you had joined Sticker Mule, and so I just wanted
Right.
to talk about a little bit about joining a company as well.
Yeah. So, for me, that's never out of the question for me. Number one, I will always have my own companies. I will always have my own streams of income. But if the right opportunity came to me, right, I would be open to it. And when you're looking at opportunities, you have to weigh the pros and cons for whatever it is in your life, right? And I think that is going to differentiate for each person, but making sure that you're going to a place that is accepting of you 100%. You never want to go to a place where you feel like you have to be a lesser version of yourself, that you can fully be comfortable there, in a place that's committed to diversity and inclusion, a place that is going to know your worth, a place that is going to pay attention to your mental health and your emotional health. And some people just run people into the ground. I have friends that are like consultants and they're working 100-hour weeks, right? It's like, oh, you got a great salary, but when you break it down to hourly, you're making like $20 an hour, right? $15 an hour, because you're working so much. So I think all those things have to be taken into account.
Okay, well that's fair. That's fair, all fair. I want to kind of redirect back to your companies. I mean, talk a little bit about Pop Social before we get into ArtX. So, I feel like every few days people ask me, oh, have you heard of Pop Social? Have you heard of Pop Social? I'm using this social media tool called Pop Social. But, you and we follow each other on like Instagram, and, I see some of your posts and your tweets sometimes. And I think you have a very funny relationship with social media. And I don't know if you are, I don't want to say anti-social media, but like, you're not one of those people who are religiously posting every second of every day. And so I'm just kind of curious
Right.
to know like what it's like building a business around social media to support social media, but consciously
Right.
making a choice not to immerse yourself in it constantly.
Yeah. I mean, um, someone sent me a DM the other day, and it was perfect because they completely got it. They said, "You come on social media, you you post your ads, you post your business stuff, and then you're off, right? And go back to minding your own business." And that's really how I use social media. You know, it's not a place that I want to get caught up into. I realize how unhealthy it could be, and that a lot of the things that we do on social media is for outside validation. It's not doing anything for ourselves, right? Like if you're sitting courtside at a basketball game, why are you putting that on social media? You're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for others. You're doing it for that outside validation, right? You're at the game. You're at courtside. You're watching LeBron. His sweat is flying on you. Like you're that close. You don't need to post it on social media. Sometimes people will post a whole concert. It's like, are you enjoying this? Are you gonna be behind your phone the entire time, right? Or look at this, or look at this thing that I have, and that's unfortunate. And so I realize the toxic nature of it, but I also understand the benefits of it. I use Pop Social myself, and I know we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world that are using Pop Social as well and getting amazing benefits from it. So I built Pop Social as a platform to help people and businesses be able to grow their audience and reach their audience on social media affordably, right? As we both know, if you try to go to a marketing firm or work with a consultant, they're charging you thousands of dollars for some of the things that Pop Social does. And, a lot of times Pop Social is way more efficient, right? So, that was the whole basis of Pop Social, was understanding how the algorithm was affecting people, slowing their growth down, how expensive it was to really get help growing your brand on social media. So I still feel like it's important to have a presence and still to, use that platform for your business and yourself, but understanding that fine line in between the two.
And how do you balance that out? Like, how do you find that fine line?
Staying the hell off social media until I need to. It's really simple, It's like I go in there when I gotta do something. I said something. I'm from Virginia. I said do something. But until I have to do something, right? And that's easy for me personally. I don't have to be glued to my phone, glued to social media. I'm enjoying life. I'm in Ohio right now, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I'm seeing so many amazing things, but I don't need to post that. I'm enjoying it. People be like, "Oh, look at the sunset." Like we haven't seen a billion sunsets in our lives, right? Like we have to capture all these moments. And so now, if Google says we're coming out with a real Google Cloud, so we need for you to post the sunset, and we're gonna pay you $30,000 for it, I'll post a damn sunset, right? But if it doesn't make business sense, and a lot of people, they don't understand, with my relationship with social media, why I still do the influencer stuff. But there's a reason why I don't have to raise capital for my companies. If I make a few $100,000 from social media influencer posts, say I make $200,000 in 1 year just off of influencer posts, that is a seed, right? That is a seed for a startup, and I just made that through influencer posts, right? And so, I use that capital and put that right back into my projects.
And did you do the same for ArtX?
Oh, ArtX is being bootstrapped.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. So I guess that's a good segue. I mean, you just launched ArtX, artx.net, for everyone who is not familiar with it quite yet. But could you tell us a little bit more about how you decided to go this direction, disrupt the art industry, and why you believe that you're the right person to do it?
Ooh, interesting. So the beginning stages of ArtX came in 2017, and it really started off as a question of like, as a person that collects art, you know, how do I find, you know, artists? You know, how do you discover and find artists? And if you don't have the connections to the galleries, some of the movers and shakers in that space, then it's really, really difficult to do so. And I became frustrated not being able to find the work that I wanted to, especially Black artists. And so I came up with the idea for Art Noir because I wanted to specifically help Black artists be discovered. And it was a very much smaller idea than what ArtX is. And as time went on, and as I became more educated in the space, I began to realize that there was a much bigger opportunity at hand. And that's when ArtX started to develop. You know, I would go into these galleries and I would get ignored. You know, I saw all the deals, back-end deals and things like that going on in the art industry. I saw how, you know, these galleries would give, you know, uneven prices. I remember this one painting, you know, for me, they told me it was one price, and for this other person, they told him it was like $30,000 less, right? And those unfair things happen, right? And so I knew it was a space that needed to be disrupted, and it needed to be somebody that came from, who understood the industry, right? And was passionate about the industry, but also didn't come from that industry and had a fresh perspective.
Do you think being too close to a project or a passion can interfere, or I don't want to say deter, but just interfere, for lack of a better word, with you excelling or being able to disrupt it? Like, is it possible to be just too emotionally tied to something?
I think if you're in a space for too long, you accept things for what they are,
Okay.
right? You accept things for what they are, and this is just the way it is, you know? People see the issues within the space, but they've been in it so long, they just accept it for what it is. For me, I've only been in the space for a few years, and so I'm looking around and I'm like, this shit isn't cool, and it needs to be changed. And so I think me coming in and coming there with kind of new eyes was the reason that I could even think of something like ArtX.
Okay, so if I'm an artist coming in and I'm hearing about ArtX.net for the first time, what are like the features and benefits of an emerging artist that an emerging artist might find by, signing up for the site?
So I can't reveal too much
Okay.
of where we're going for it, but right now the ways that we're helping artists is, number one, through our media platform. We'll be highlighting and interviewing and featuring different artists. For instance, even the first artist that we did for launch, she's already sold her work because of us featuring her on ArtX, right? Number two is our software tool. So you have the software tool, very similar to Pop Social, called Amplify, but it is optimized for creatives and artists. And then also our free tools, like our business directory, our invoice generator, and our media scheduler that's similar to Calendly, that's going to be coming out soon. So you'll have those resources there as an artist to help build your brand. And then we have scholarships for artists in need. So say you need to buy supplies, you can't pay for your rent, you need to open up a studio, whatever it is, we're going to be giving need-based scholarships out to artists, and then also during events showcasing artists in individual cities, which is coming out very, very soon. And so those things are things that artists can take advantage of now. But right now, phase one of ArtX is really building cultural capital, building relationships with artists, and furthering our brand within the art space for a much, much bigger play. And so if you want to be a part of that play as an artist, which I'm pretty sure you are going to from the product that we have, that we are going to release, artists can now sign up at artx.net/sign up. And we have something special that we're cooking up.
Okay. What I love about this is that, first, like, once upon a time, I used to be an artist myself, many, many years ago in a different life. And, I've met a lot of artists over the years, whether it, just be homeboys or like my friend's boyfriend. And, some of the most amazing artists I've met are just in the hood. They're sketching, they're doodling, they're, someone's buying them their first canvas and they're giving it a stab and they're producing amazing things. But, like they say, like, talent is equally distributed, opportunity isn't. And, a lot of these people don't have any idea where to start. And so a platform like ArtX makes, this industry accessible to everyone. It democratizes things and gives everyone an equal opportunity to kind of bet on themselves. And so, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see what it does for the lives of artists. And, I'm curious to know, I know you can't give me too much right now, but like in 5 years, where do you want to see the platform outside of the features itself? But what would you like to see it do for artists' lives?
So I want to see ArtX become the number one platform that help artists be discovered by collectors or people that are interested in collecting in the space, to help artists from a financial perspective and make more money and sell more work, and make that process seamless for artists who are independent. As you know, being a former artist, less than 1% of artists are actually represented by galleries, right?
Yep.
So most artists are independent and they don't have the resources or the infrastructure that, galleries can provide, right? And so, ArtX, I really want that to be the destination for independent artists to be successful. And then, maybe other artists, especially in this digital age, will start to realize too that, hey, instead of having a gallery take 50%, here's a platform where I can sell my art directly to the consumer, right? So I think ArtX, years and years in the future will be a platform where, artists will be able to deal and handle everything they need to as an artist on one platform.
Okay. So I have 2 more questions for you. And one is our listener submitted question, which I think will be perfect for you because I think you kind of touched on this a little earlier. But the last question I have for you personally is just like, do you think you've had your big idea yet? We toss around this notion of a big idea. People call it their, unicorn idea. But do you feel like you've had your big idea quite yet? And if not, do you feel a self-imposed pressure to conceptualize it?
I honestly don't know if I've had my big idea yet. I don't think any of the companies I've done prior to ArtX were that big idea. ArtX may be, but it depends on what you define as a big idea. If you're talking about, a company that's going to be a unicorn, then absolutely not. We'll see what happens with ArtX. But, you know, man, if you could create a company that's profitable and successful, that's big to a lot of people, right? And so I'm very fortunate that I'm in the position that I'm in today. And, you know, I love that I've been able to accomplish the things that I've been able to accomplish with my companies. And I don't feel like I'm personally missing out on anything, but now I'm very focused on impact. So that doesn't necessarily mean me making a unicorn, $1 billion company, but that's changing lives. ArtX changes lives. Southside Fund, my new nonprofit, changes lives. And that's what really keeps me going.
Well, that's fair. I think a big part of that is like, you know, you defining success for yourself. And like, I mean, I think we have this notion, and I think there's this continued image on whether that be in social media and the press and media and everything like that about how success, the archetype of success, like you have to make a lot of money, you have to do this, you have to do that. But I mean, success might look like you said, impact to you, like touching people's lives, transforming their futures, like, you know, dynamically disrupting communities and you know, putting them in a place of economic empowerment. So, you know, big. I kind of just wanted to hear how you'd answer it, but, you know, big can mean a lot of things to different people. So, but with that, I'm going to read our listener submitted question. And it is from Ty. He is in Alabama. He says, I'm making strides toward opening a tech-focused co-working space in Alabama. He said, I'm bootstrapping the project myself, but I don't come from a particularly well-off family or community network. Although I'm making great strides on the space, I find myself struggling to make and materialize the right connections in this neck of the woods. I'd love to eventually find some strategic partners, possibly some investors, to maximize the space's potential. But I'm finding the no's I've encountered thus far to be pretty defeating. How do you muster up the resilience to remain inspired and motivated during your setbacks, droughts, and when it feels like doors are being constantly shut in your face?
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like I said in the beginning of this interview, is that, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to get comfortable with the no's, and you can't let those get you down too much, because those things are going to happen frequently and often, even when you're successful. I remember I had an idea, and this is after I had created, you know, multiple successful companies, that, you know, I was still getting turned down by VCs and different people I was trying to share this idea with. And so, you know, those no's are going to continue to happen. You just have to be in the headspace of believing in your idea, being confident in your idea, knowing that this is something that is going to work, and continuing to have that confidence in yourself, because you have to believe in yourself before anyone else does. And so if you're losing that confidence and getting discouraged, you don't want to do that. And then where there's a will, there's a way. You know, you've seen, I'm losing her name right now, but, you know, she was getting turned down from VCs, and so she said, you know what, I'm going to figure out my own way. Oh, Don Dixon, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to figure out my own way to raise this money. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, they say. And so just continue to be open-minded in ways you can make the things that you want to make happen.
All right. Well, you guys heard it. So I want to thank Everett again for coming on today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your vacation. It is much deserved. So take care of yourself.
It's not a vacation, but
okay.
You know, it's I'm still working, but getting some peace of mind. So.
All right, nothing wrong with that. All right, well, thanks again. We appreciate you, and best of luck with ArtX.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to MVP. If you'd like to hear more from me or our guests, visit mvpodcast.substack.com for exclusive content, updates, and announcements. And if you love the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or follow us on Instagram at @TheAmandaSpann and MV Podcast. Thanks again, and see you next week.